Design number 16. Picturesque square house. A floor plan from the 1850s. This house, which is the property of Mr. David Moore of Newburgh, was planned for another party in the first instance, and was partly executed with the idea that it was to be very simply and economically finished. It was commenced without any intention of constructing the dormer windows, the projecting hoods, or the covered balcony over the lower bay, all of which, as may be seen on reference to the sketch, helped materially to give individuality and completeness to the design. The main outline of the plan is a simple parallelogram, without any break in the walls, and the study may, therefore, be interesting to those who like a generally picturesque effect in a house, but who wish to avoid irregularities in the internal arrangement or uneconomical projections in carrying up the brickwork. During the progress of the work, the building changed hands, and came into the possession of its present owner, Mr. Moore, and in accordance with his instructions the design was improved in many important points. The additions already referred to were made, another bay window was introduced, the roof to the veranda, also, was curved, and finished with a balustrade. The plan may be thus described: an enclosed wooden porch, shown to a larger scale at page 72, leads into the principal hall, which is paved with red, black, and buff encaustic tiles in a simple but effective star pattern. This hall communicates with the library, which is a handsomely finished room, containing 2 bookcases recessed in the walls on one side, and a third arranged between the windows on the other side. The architrave moldings of the doors, windows, and bookcases being boldly relieved, and so arranged that they may group together in several different combinations. The drawing room extends the whole length of the house. The southern part was originally proposed for a bedroom, but when the property came into Mr. Moore's possession it was connected with the parlor by an ornamental wooden arch, without folding doors. From this drawing room the windows open onto a wide, spacious veranda, commanding an extensive view of the Hudson. In the staircase hall is a garden entrance, and a door to a small private room or office. The dining room is in the basement, but the ground falls off so rapidly that the side of the room which looks out onto the ornamental garden, and the river beyond, is entirely out of ground, and communicates with a brick piazza supporting the veranda above. It has not, however, been thought necessary to give a separate plan of this floor, which contains kitchen and other offices, cellar, vaults, and furnace room. Conveniently situated underneath the pavement of side entrance is an outhouse and necessary, approached from the basement through a vine-covered veranda passage, and arranged on a similar plan to that already described in the opening chapter and in the description of Mr. Warren's house. Mr. Moore's house was, however, the first in which this plan was tried, and it was while endeavoring to overcome the difficulties suggested by his needs that the idea occurred to me. The filling up and grading about the house was thus made more satisfactory, and the outbuildings were entirely concealed from view, which could not, in any reasonable time, have been done by trees or evergreens on account of the continuous fall in the ground, which made it necessary that the principal rooms and veranda should look down onto the lawns and garden ground surrounding the house. The chamber plan will be found to contain 4 bedrooms, with a linen room, bathroom, and water closet, all easy of access, but planned with a special regard to privacy. An open and airy stairway to the attic leads into a roomy, well-lighted upper hall, communicating with 4 large bedrooms and a storeroom. Above this again is a well-ventilated garret 4 or 5 feet high that affords convenient stowage for trunks and furnishes a complete shield from the heat and cold. The attic rooms in this house are as convenient, and almost as agreeable, as the principal bedchambers below them. And as they naturally command a more extensive view than can be obtained from the rest of the house, they have this one great advantage over the other rooms. A reference to the plan of roofs will show how, by the arrangement of the flat on the top, the whole composition is simply treated, so as to offer as little resting place as possible for the snow where it is likely to do any harm. This house is painted in soft, quiet tints. The walls are very light buff, with a tinge of green in it that, although scarcely noticeable, materially improves the general effect, as it makes the contrast between the house and its surroundings less decided. The woodwork is in various shades of brown. I feel, however, that it is useless for me to attempt, by words, to convey an accurate idea of any delicate effects of color that may be used with advantage in rural architecture. One might as well try to describe an Irish melody or a fantasia on the violin. All varieties of form may be explained, to a considerable extent, by simple diagrams and descriptions, but minute refinements in color refuse to be penned down, and must be seen to be understood and appreciated. This house, which was built by the day and under the superintendence of the architect from the time it came into Mr. Moore's possession, has been very carefully and completely fitted up throughout with all the modern improvements of gas, water, speaking tubes, furnace, and ventilators, under the direction and instructions of the proprietor, who took a personal and constantly active interest in the work from the time he commenced his improvements till the whole was completed to his satisfaction. And it affords a fair example of what may be done in this style with a simple, straightforward plan, although it is difficult in so small a drawing to convey any very complete idea of its actual effect, which depends a good deal on the care bestowed in working out the details. In this case, the locality in which the house was built had already been provided with gas works, and the pipes were therefore introduced as a matter of course. But in a majority of the situations in which country houses are built, there are no gas works at hand, and no likelihood of any being erected. It is, however, in any plan of moderate size, well worthwhile to introduce the pipes, as the expense is small, and the improvements that are constantly taking place in the machines invented for making gas on a small scale for home consumption lead us to hope that ere long it may be both easy and economical to light a single house in this way with some simple apparatus that can be put up and readily attended to on the premises. This is, indeed, already done to a greater extent than may, perhaps, be supposed. When putting in the pipes, it is, of course, necessary to prepare a notch in the beams to receive them, and unless proper care is taken, this notch will, in many cases, be made by cutting an inch or more out of the very middle of the upper edge of each of the beams that occur between the side of the room and its center, where the chandelier is suspended, although this plan is the most foolish that can be adopted, as it weakens the beam at the most important point merely to save a few feet of pipe and a little trouble on the part of the gas fitter. The pipes should always be so planned that the notch, or recess, may be cut into the beam not more than a foot from the wall, where it will do no harm, and the connection to the center of the room should invariably be made between the beams, and not across them. The architect's commission for Mr. Moore's house was calculated on $12,000, which was about the cost without mantles, range, and grates. $60 was also charged for laying out the grounds, and the garden plan adopted may be gathered from the vignette below. It will be seen that the house appears to be considerably on one side of the lot. This occurred from necessity, originally, as the foundation was commenced on a piece of ground only half the size finally occupied. But the effect is, in execution, quite satisfactory, and it does not now appear at all desirable that the house should have been planned on the center of the lot on which it at present stands, for the ornamental garden shows to good advantage, and the stretches of open lawns that are rendered possible by placing the house on one side have a much better effect than small plots intersected by gravel walks. On the grass in front of the house a pretty fountain is introduced, and the gates are made somewhat ornamental.